Welcome back to the summit. I am Dr. Lisa Olszewski, and over here with me today is Dr. Heather Cardin. And this is going to be an amazing presentation. I really love the fact that we're going to just kind of obviously go into keto, but we're also going to talk a little bit about plateaus, exactly what plateaus are, how to bust through plateaus, and all of those things. So if you've been doing keto for a little bit and you feel like you're struggling, or if you are just deep diving first right now into keto, it's going to be a presentation you want to watch. So Dr. Heather, welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Lisa, for having me. I am excited to be here with you today, and this is my favorite topic to talk about. And as you know, it's getting easier to talk about. People actually know how to spell the word keto. I love that people are knowing how to actually optimize their health with keto. So a little bit about myself. I'm coming to you live from Overland Park, Kansas, where I practice alongside my husband at Cardin Center for Wellness. We've been practicing for a little over 23 years. We have a very functional style of practice. So we're not only chiropractors, we're applied kinesiologists, we are acupuncturists, we also do biofeedback, neurofeedback, homeopathy. So we have a lot of tools in our pocket. So what we do is we really look for the imbalance in the body. We look to remove the interference and actually let the body have the amazing ability to actually heal and optimize its health. So when you can remove that interference, whatever's stopping the body from being its optimal self, whether it be a subluxation, whether it be a food allergy, whether it be some type of imbalance, we remove that interference and imbalance so the body can actually start to heal itself. And that's what's most exciting, I think, about being a functional wellness practice, is that we're really detectives and we look for that, microscopic imbalance. And once we find that, it's amazing what the body can do when you remove that. And I know you see that every day in your practice as well, that the body is an amazing miracle when it is actually in the right homeostasis balance.
Absolutely. And your body reacts exactly to what you give it, right? And so that's exactly as we always teach our patients, like you give it good stuff, it's going to treat you really well. You give your body a lot of bad stuff, you're going to get the same results. So I know both of our histories, we have been talking about keto for a long time to our practice members. Well before it was ever a huge buzzword. Within, I would say, about the last 5 years is really when keto started kind of taking off, but now it's very much more mainstream. So why have you always, I guess, encouraged your patients to eat more of a low carb, high fat diet?
Yeah, so I love this question. I'm going to share a little bit. So when we first opened our doors, Dr. Ralph and I would have little classes on Saturday morning. We were both zone certified back in the day with Dr. Barry Sears. And we would have classes and teach people to put butter on your broccoli and forget the piece of bread. And we would see cholesterol numbers come back into healthy ranges, A1C drop. I think because we know that food is energy for our body, and our body is its own pharmacy. Just like you said, you give it the right nutrients, it can run very well, it can make what it needs to actually operate on a day-to-day basis. So at each of our protocols, no matter what the person's health condition may be, no matter what they're trying to optimize, we always start with a low carb, high fat diet, because we know that there's no essential carbohydrate.
Right.
People, there's no essential carbohydrate. There's essential fatty acid. There's essential amino acids, which means you must include essential fats in your diet. You must include essential amino acids. You don't have to have a banana. You don't have to have oatmeal, but you do have to have healthy fatty acids. And I think when you start educating people on what the body needs to run on, and then when you start optimizing it with the foods that it really does need, it starts operating much better for you. And when people get those results and they start feeling better pretty quickly within just a few days, and then they see their lab work start to come into the normal range, it's just a big game changer for them, and they see that work really pay off. So as you know, I know, when we look at the human body when in anatomy class, or we look at it underneath the microscope, when you give it the right nutrients and you take away what it doesn't need, we know food is medicine, that the body starts to do what it needs to do, which is operate for you as much as you want it to operate for you. And we're in an overstressed society. We put high demands on our body every single day. And currently right now, with the stress that we're living in, we are asking our body to do a lot, asking it to tolerate a lot of stress, whether it's emotional, whether it's financial, whether it's physical, and say, we've got to do this. So we actually need to really focus on what energy we're burning in our body. And energy either is going to be glucose or ketones.
Okay, let's deep dive in that, because I think that's probably, you said it, there is no essential carbohydrate. So let's dig into that a little bit, because here's that common myth. I think of even when I was in grad school, And even in the early 2000s, you know, in doing races and running and all of that, we would carb load. And so I know there are people listening right now saying, no, 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 no. If I'm an endurance athlete, if I am working out, I need to make sure, you know, I get my carbohydrates. But what you said is brilliant. And I know you say this all the time, that there is no essential carbohydrate. Like, it's right there, but nobody thinks of it that way. So let's dive into that.
So your body can break down protein. Anytime you eat excess protein, it gets stored through a biological process called gluconeogenesis. Your body will actually take excess protein and store it into fat. And it will do that with the same thing with excess carbohydrates. Or when you're eating nuts, which are fats, it has a little bit of carbohydrates. Protein has carbohydrates, vegetables have carbohydrates. So you're still getting carbohydrates in your essential fats and in your essential proteins. But we're really talking about, we don't need grains, we don't need legumes, we don't need fruits. We don't need things like that. We don't need cakes and pies and cookies and those type of things to actually optimize our body's fuel source. I'm like you, I don't know about you, I'm an 80s lady. My first marathons were actually done and triathlons were done carb loading, and I actually had pretty good times, but I tanked for 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. Like I felt like I had the flu. I didn't look lean and cut because my body was tapping into my lean muscle mass and breaking it down. When you're burning fuel for fat or fat for fuel, when you're in ketosis, in a state where your body's burning fat for fuel, it protects your lean muscle mass. So we are seeing people who are big biohackers out there, they are actually fasting 4 to 15 to 20 hours prior to an endurance race. So they know they're protecting their lean muscle mass, and we're seeing PRs all over the world in every single type of activity, whether it's powerlifting, which is really a new disruptor, that people are fasting with powerlifting and then staying fasted. They're not refueling with carbohydrates like they used to. We're seeing endurance athletes like Tour de France or triathletes all out there trying to disprove this myth that you must refuel with carbohydrates, and they're seeing just the opposite, that their bodies are saying, no, I actually do better, I recover better, my VO2 max is much better when I'm actually working out in a fasted state. I recover much faster in a fasted state because my body's working on recovery, not digesting food as soon as I get done working out. So the science is out there. I'm not creating the science. I'm reading, I'm digging in there. It's really easy right now with Dr. Google to sift and sort and get on some of these good drive engines to see who's creating the real information out there. And there's major universities all around the world trying to disprove or prove how should we fuel our bodies, which is exciting because in the 80s, we didn't have computers. Believe it or not, people, we didn't have them out there. My kids don't believe that. No iPhone, no Dr. Google. We had to get out the papers and the research articles and go to the library, but now we have it at the touch of our fingers. So, you know, Dr. Finney, Dr. Volek, there's some leading thought leaders out there doing all this research for us. NASA's doing this. Operation Navy SEALs are doing the information for us because we want the people who protect our rights to actually have the very best performance in their bodies 24/7. So we know what our Homeland Security is doing. We know what NASA's doing. We know what our Office of Navy Research is doing, our Navy SEALs, who are, I can't say that word, they're the badasses out there protecting us, and we know what they're doing. They're in ketosis. So I say that if you want to be optimal yourself, let's do what the best are doing.
I love it. That's exactly, and you just dropped some huge names in the research field too. So just to see what they're doing, especially Volek out of Ohio, right? So such amazing research. For those that aren't familiar with biohacking, right? Just talk about exactly what biohacking is. I know you and I, it's a daily word for us because we are biohackers, but for people that don't understand when we say biohacking, give them a quick explanation.
It just means simply optimizing your body by using different tools. I know oftentimes in the 80s, we would say, well, my whole family had heart disease, so I'm going to have heart disease. My whole family had cancer, so I'm going to have cancer. Biohacking simply means just optimizing your own body and gene pool, what you have. So we know that genetics load the gun, but lifestyle fires it. So changing up your lifestyle, creating metabolic confusion, doing what the thought leaders are doing to actually keep those genes quieted, whatever your gene pool may be, to live the healthiest lifestyle. And that's what biohacking is. Mix things up, do metabolic confusion, so your body doesn't get the chance to fire the gun, so things can load and go. Things
I love
like
it, right?
heart disease and cancer.
Yeah, and especially when patients walk in and say, well, you know, I've got, you know, X, Y, and Z genes and my parents had this, I'm destined for it. I'm like, time out, like time out. Our lifestyle, it's whether or not we're going to turn on our genes or turn them off, right? And I love that saying. So let's talk about when people do get into ketosis. you know, typically we are cutting down our carbohydrates. Let's go. What are the guidelines you typically tell people? I know what I tell them, and they don't like me.
As in getting started in ketosis?
Yeah, getting started into keto. What do you need to do?
Well, I generally ask them their personality. So if they're starting at 300 or 400 carbohydrates, I ask them if they were a smoker, would you go cold turkey or would you minimize, 2 cigarettes each day every 3 days? So some people can't go from 400 down to 25. I'd have them just reduce it slowly because you're going to get the carb flu. It's not the keto flu. Think about the alcoholic who has to go to the hospital to rehab because they're drinking so many carbohydrates. So depending on your personality, either just go slowly like 200 down to 125, down to 75 carbohydrates, and this is per day. Or if you're a person who says, I got to go cold turkey, I'm highly addicted to sugar, I can get through this, I've got an accountability partner, I'm working with a doctor through this. I take women right down to 25 carbs. I take men down to 35 or 30 carbs, depending on their activity level. Again, you've got to do some detective work to see what they're doing. And then if they get into ketosis within 3, 5, 7 days, it doesn't happen overnight. And then once they get into ketosis and they're there for 3 to 5 days, then I up their carbs about 3 grams per day total. I do not do the math. I don't do the total math. It's total carbs. We don't minus this and minus that unless it's a vegetable, like it's one ingredient, celery, then we'll do the math. But if it's a funny bar, and I generally have people just do whole food, celery, carrots, broccoli, that type of thing. And then we just go up by 3 to 4 carbs for every 3rd or 4th day until you find yourself getting out of ketosis. And then we just go back to where that plateau is. The tricky thing about being in a natural state of ketogenesis, the first 6 months is your body wants to slip back into what it knows, which is sugar burning. And I've been in this state several times in my life, whether it was post-baby because I had a candida infection, or I wanted to be an accountability partner for one of my patients that had cancer, or I was training for a triathlon and just wanted to biohack myself. I had a skiing accident. I wanted to maintain my lean muscle mass in 2014. I've been in ketosis since then. But 3 or 4 extra almonds can kick you out of ketosis. A couple extra red peppers on your fajitas can kick you out of ketosis. I'd have my own cycle. I'd be out of ketosis just from the stress of my adrenal glands making hormones. So it can be very, very temperamental. I don't get enough sleep. I'm mad at my dog because it chewed up something else. Any little thing can disrupt your body from being out of ketosis, although it's an amazing state. So you can't really, those carbs can be very, very different for each person. You can have hidden food allergies that can continue from not letting you get into natural ketosis or ketogenesis. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. We drop it down to 25. If you're there, once you get there, go up by 3 for 3 or 4 days. If you stay there, go up by 3, but then you've got to take it back down. And if you find yourself out of ketosis on that 3rd or 4th, maybe you got to 32 carbs, total carbs per day, then just do some cardio to burn that out and get it out and get yourself right back into natural ketosis.
Right. And that's the thing is I always love for people just to become aware, because I don't think people even understand that they could be consuming 300 to 400 grams of carbs each day. Because let's say that and people are like, there is no way I'm eating that much. I'm like, let's just track it and find out. And when they realize it, it's like, holy smokes. And so it's that awareness first, like, how much am I actually eating? What is it? And then, like you said, we've got to just start slowly, because it is, if they go from a 300 to 400 burner, or not burner, but eater per day down to 20 grams, they're not going to be happy. So it's got to be baby steps, which is why we get along so well.
Yeah.
So,
and people are medicated, that's going to happen as well if they're on metformin or Invokana or something like that. And they're going to say, oh, the keto diet's making me sick because they've cut out their orange juice and their banana. It can be just those 2 items. I'm like, no, now you're over medicated, which is the amazing thing, because fats don't require insulin. Your orange juice and your banana and your oatmeal require insulin. So now you don't need the insulin, which those drugs, those oral hypoglycemics, make you drug dependent. They make you carb dependent. So that's an exciting thing to happen. So you've really got to make sure you're working with your healthcare professional. Yes. If you're on an oral hypoglycemic and you're actually toggling with your carbohydrates and moving those down.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's talk about for when people get into a plateau, and what exactly is a plateau versus, I know there are some, I guess I'll just call it, there are diets out there that if you don't lose weight for like 24 hours, they consider you in a plateau. So let's talk about what a plateau actually is and some ways that we can bust through those plateaus.
So plateau or stall is defined by no movement on the scale or inches for 10 to 14 days. not 24 hours, not 72 hours, but 10 to 14 days, no movement in inches. And that's measuring, again, at least 6 or 10 places on your body, and no movement in the scale. And there's been no significant changes, like you didn't have surgery or go get IV fluids. You don't take any of those into consideration. So that really defines a stall or plateau. And I think that the major thing people do is they calculate their macros, and then they lose 20 or 30 pounds, and they forget to recalculate their macros, because their body's a different body than it was 20 or 30 pounds ago. And also what happens if you lose 20 or 30 pounds, you also lose electrolytes. So what happens is your body will actually hold on to fat, because now it's lost some electrolytes, which are essential for survival, and it will hold on to fat because things, I've got to have those electrolytes. I can't lose anything else. So that's, again, work with your healthcare providers. So make sure that you're not losing sodium, potassium, iron, magnesium. So once you hit a stall or plateau, let's make sure it's not just an overnight plateau or stall, and you didn't have some carb creep. That's another thing. Get your food diary out. Make sure you're not having carb creep happening, right? That happens. And your intermittent fasting hours haven't expanded from 8 to 14. You're not like slipping in mints, because that'll happen when people get in ketosis. They're chewing on gum, or they're having mints every day throughout there. So, and then we can get right down to some tips to kind of break those stalls or plateaus.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's go through some of those. How about, because I'm sure water intake is another one that sometimes people, well, think they're drinking enough water. They might not be, right?
Exactly. So you've got to make sure you're washing away the fats. So make sure your mineral balance is good, your electrolyte balance. Make sure you're drinking enough water, and then create metabolic confusion. If you're eating the same 4 foods 4 days in a row, your body will go into starvation. So if you're having eggs and spinach for breakfast, you're having a hamburger and pickle and slaw for lunch, and you're having a chicken breast and green beans, after 4 days, your body goes into starvation mode, because it's not getting 21 essential amino acids. Your body will create a plateau after just 4 days. Metabolic confusion, no 2 foods more than 4 days in a row. So Monday's a beef day, Tuesday's a chicken day, Wednesday can be a pink fish day. You can have turkey on Thursday, whitefish on Friday. I know I said it fast, but you got to be rotating your fats. You need to be rotating your foods. There's no way that your body is the same body every single day. Your energy exposure is different every day. So if you're doing intermittent fasting, listen to your body, eat when hungry. So it can't be every day from 10 to 6, you're exactly hungry that day. And oftentimes people will go, I'm going to go a little bit longer to eat at 2. Then they're doing an 8-hour intermittent fasting. They end up eating like at 10. You really should have your last meal 4 hours before bedtime, because you want to calm down the nervous system. And that leads into sleep. Sleep can be the biggest disruptor of a plateau. So make sure you're getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So check your sleep hygiene. Make sure you're shutting everything down. Take a nice Epsom salt bath, maybe do some nice meditation. We know that right now, attitude and gratitude and neuroplasticity is so important for actually losing unwanted fat. We know our brain recycles cortisol and a lot of other hormones, which can actually cause you to actually gain weight at night. So you can be eating the same way and gain weight, believe it or not, even on a perfect intermittent fasting diet. You don't have any hidden food allergies, because hidden food allergies can also cause you to actually gain extra weight. It's a histamine response. You're just holding on to some excess water, because your body's like, I don't know what this thing is. Just like your nose swells up with allergies, so the same thing will happen with your gut. So a hidden food allergy can also cause you to have a little bit of stall or plateau. So sleep, and then stress right now. But a lot of people like, identify your stress, write it down. Don't just assume it. Don't tell the world, but write it on a piece of paper. And what stress is causing you, because stress, again, will disrupt your cortisol, disrupt your sleep. It'll actually cause you to not only just have a plateau, but cause you to gain weight. So use things like meditation, yoga, chiropractic, acupuncture, biofeedback, neurofeedback, essential oils. We have so many tools now that we can use to actually help de-stress your body. There's rest and repose, right? We need to rest and digest, because if your digestive system is all fired up, then you're going to actually hold on to excess weight. You're going to eat out of hunger or hanger, and then your body's not going to calm down. So just to run through those super quick.
Yes.
So create metabolic confusion. So eat at different times of the day. Make sure you're rotating foods. Make sure your intermittent fasting hours is, again, at least 7 or 8 hours. You make sure that there's no hidden food allergies. You're not creeping in dairy and creeping in too many nuts. Getting good quality sleep. So shutting off anything that's electrical, your phone, your iPad, things like that. Anything, make sure it's super, super dark in your room as well. You can also cool down your bedroom. That also helps your body lose some unwanted fat and recycle your cortisol and reset that. Recognize stress in your life. and then do some gratitude or attitude. Writing just 2 things down before you go to bed at night will actually calm down your brain. It will help create good neuroplasticity. You can just be like, I'm a great person, I'm a good friend, I'm trustworthy, I have great eyes, I have a good smile. It can be just a couple things, but 2 things before you go to bed will help your body get into that great place of sleep. No matter what kind of day you have had, it puts your brain right where it needs to be before you go to sleep. So those are some things that I have found. Just a 1 or 2 degree shift can really cause a huge disruption and get that plateau broken and help you back on your way to healthy weight and fat loss.
I love it. And that's where I always tell people, turn off the news before bed. Do not let that run through your mind
No.
for however many hours, especially now. So definitely the attitude of gratitude. And then let's go back over the metabolic confusion real quick again. So never the same protein 2 days in a row.
4 days in a row.
4 days in a row. Okay.
So Monday, if you eat beef, don't eat again until Thursday, or chicken or fish. So 4 days in a row. And that's the same for fats, and that's the same for vegetables.
Okay.
So 4 days in a row. No 2 foods 4 days in a row.
Okay. That's huge.
And then workout as well. I didn't get that. So make sure you're doing different workouts. If you're the hamster on the wheel, you're like, I've lost 50 pounds and I've been doing 5 miles every day. Well, now that becomes your ADLs, or activity of daily living. You've got to do some burst exercise. You don't have to put another hour of exercise in your day. You've just got to do some metabolic confusion. I have 4 boys. I always use this comparison. If I have all 4 boys and I have one drive 80 miles an hour from here to Minnesota, and I have one drive 65 miles an hour from here to Minnesota, all in the same car, and I have one start and stop at every exit, who's going to have the most fuel efficiency? Well, the ones that drive 60 and 80 are going to have about the same fuel efficiency. The one that starts and stops at every exit is going to burn the most fuel. So if you're stopping and starting, you can still take your same 5 mile, but every couple minutes, do some plyo jacks, do some burpees, do some high knees, get some high intensity to tap through that fat. And really do a little bit of weightlifting is going to also help burn some fat. Studies show that gets you through that white and brown fat plateau breaker. So not longer, just more intense or HIIT workout in different times of the day, not late at night, because that stirs up your cortisol. But even throughout the day, just doing some squats out of your chair. When you start to feel stressed at work, drop and do some push-ups, or do some high knees, or run up and down the stairs, or go up the stairs backwards and do some tricep. Just metabolic confusion. Create some different things. Metabolic confusion can also be work from a different area at home right now, especially with quarantine going on. It'll shift your brain to look at something different. Look at a bird out the window, or look at a deer out the window, or look at different high rise out the window. Whatever it is, listen to different music. All that metabolic confusion is so good for your body. It says, I'm a different body today than I was yesterday, which helps you move forward in your healing journey.
Yes, absolutely. Because we're always constantly changing, constant confusion. I do absolutely love that. And the high intensity, there's so much research behind that now. So that's fabulous. How about anything else that you have to add?
I think I could probably talk for an hour on that. What'd you say?
Anything else you'd like to add, and where can they find more information about you?
Oh my gosh, I would say number 1, write down a food diary so you know exactly what you're doing. And the food diary is going to include sleep, things that you're drinking, how much water you're drinking, because oftentimes patients will assume, or people assume they're drinking, oh, I exercised yesterday, and they realize it's been 2 or 3 days. So write it down, number 1, start to be your own detective, and you're going to see like, oh, well, I really wasn't exercising that much. I wasn't drinking that much water, or I am having eggs every day. I'm having too much bacon. It is a condiment. So more plant fats when you go back to keto. People kind of get called lazy keto, not dirty, but go back to eating whole real foods. And I will say also doing an OMED, which is 1 meal every day, is so good for your nervous system. It's so good for your gut health, which is just simply eating 1 meal a day. So that would be 1 day a week, doing lunch to lunch or brunch to brunch from Thursday to Friday. And pick your busiest day of the week so you're not concentrating on food. That's another great plateau breaker, kind of a bonus one there for you. So you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, my blog, Facebook at Ask Dr. Heather, ASKDR Heather. My blog is .net. If you go to .com, you're going to get a veterinarian. Not that I don't love my dog, but I am not a veterinarian. But Ask Dr. Heather .net, Ask Dr. Heather on Facebook, Ask Dr. Heather on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter Twitter very much. I'm trying to figure out TikTok. So I'm trying to make some cooking videos, keto cooking videos there. But I do have about 1,000 recipes that are all gluten-free, dairy-free on my blog. I also have some other keto facts there as well. So I would love to have you follow me there. Also, I have a free 8-page guide I'm offering today for anybody listening. So just contact me and I will help you download my 8-page guide to start your day in the right way. It's an autoimmune friendly keto low carb guide with some of my favorite breakfast recipes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Heather. It was so informative, and I know people were able to get a couple of nuggets out of there too, if they're just starting keto, or to help get through any plateaus if you've been at keto for a while. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.